We're all works in progress. Join me, Jen Hart, as I wander creator spaces across the U.S. to meet artists, musicians, makers, and creatives of all kinds, to hear their stories and to find out what inspires them. We'll also play a game of 10 questions. Keep track if you like, and we'll count them up at the end. The nice thing is that the only one that can really lose this game by not getting to 10 is me. And we all get to win by meeting some seriously talented people. I can only see good things coming. Travel has played such a pivotal role in my life. From the first second I boarded a plane to take me to somewhere new on my own dime, I was hooked. It's brought me perspective, giving me space to be still. Some of my best and most favorite ideas are written on the back of a plane ticket. It's also made me more empathetic and connected to others. Sitting in a cafe in Florence, I once chatted with a Midwestern couple, 20 years my senior, for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Time kind of flew by. We talked about the city and about art. We probably didn't have much else in common outside of Florence, but on this we could agree. The Mona Lisa is overrated in Paris, and the Statue of David in Florence is an absolute awe-striking masterpiece. Sorry, Leo. We were there so long the waiter almost put our bills together. It's also tested my patience, which are inherently pretty low anyway. A layover in Miami once had me sleeping on the floor in the airport. Not recommended, and definitely not my best moment. I also almost got stuck in Paris on the same Italy trip I was just raving about, because I missed the train back to the airport after trying to squeeze in one day out of Paris before I had to fly to Italy. Or got to fly to Italy, I should say. I had to plead and cry and beg on my way back onto the plane so I didn't miss the rest of the trip. The first time I visited New York with one of my most favorite people in this world, Miss Tanya McIntosh, we ran through Times Square wearing trench coats and made it just in time before they closed the doors for curtain. I could not have imagined a more New York thing at the time, and even still now. Sitting in our chairs, we cried, surrounded by all that glorious vintage beauty, dark red velvet curtains, damask wallpapers, and crystal chandeliers, like a time capsule from another era. Then we saw Les Miserables and cried again, because it's really sad. No matter what my experience has been when in another country or city here in the States, I feel I have come back better for it. DJ benarsenal and I have this in common. Hearing his passion for travel and how it's influenced his life and work was a bit like holding up a mirror for me. So if you get the chance, please do take that bus to somewhere new, throw a dart on the map and see where it lands. Share a calzone with another wayward traveler. And if you miss the train, well, no worries. There's another one coming. Sitting in front of me is one of Philadelphia's hottest names in house music, an international DJ and producer that's shared the stage with the likes of Rivstar, Bob Moses, and Felix the House Cat. He's pushing the boundaries of global dance while seeking to energize, inspire, and unite people, and I love that so much, and I can't wait to talk about it. benarsenal, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so stoked to be in your studio, too. It's super cool to get to, like, kind of crawl inside your brain where you work and get it all done. So how many hours a day are you spending down here, like, crafting your music and your playlists and in what you do?
Yeah, it all depends on the ebbs and flows of, show schedules. So I go between, intense production time. Sometimes I'll be in here 12 or 16 hours.
Wow.
Sometimes I'm not here for an entire week if there's a bunch of shows that week, and
Yeah.
I have to kind of tend to, managing the team and more administrative kind of things.
Yeah.
Which is the unfortunate reality of
being a working artist.
Yeah, being a working artist sometimes. But I've been here for 12 years. Put it together with my partner Eric Bogatz after we graduated from Temple, and just decided to start a business. We were producing other artists, and at this point I'm doing mostly just work for myself, a little bit of commercial work, but mostly focused on original productions and
that's so cool.
Producing DJ sets and whatnot.
So you're from Philly then? Is that correct?
I'm actually from Vermont.
Oh, okay,
I've been here
cool.
for 18 years now. So
Awesome, but you went to school here in Philly and just loved it and stayed.
Yeah, to be honest, I moved here and I couldn't stand it, and then year by year it latched on. I guess I latched on to Philly and found my people slowly, and found my way. And by the time I graduated, I'd landed enough work as a DJ to pursue my dream, which is doing music full time. And
well, you've built quite a name for yourself, so it's really cool to hear someone that really got in there and just worked and got it done. Do you feel like when you were coming up, do you feel like there were people that helped you along the way, or gave you good advice that you're still kind of taking to heart and applying, or how did you get to this point? Because from someone on the outside, you look like you made it, right? You have made it.
Right. No, I mean it's my full-time focus now, so conceptually I have made it. There's still a long way to go,
for sure.
And the whole world to explore through music, but there's definitely been multiple key people along the way. My mentor Peter Master Giacomo, he kind of took me under his wing, and consequently I got him to help me produce a party, which then he ended up launching his company, which
so cool.
is now Grace and Sky. They're a marketing and brand management agency.
Yeah.
So he kind of curses me every day because it's my fault, apparently, which it is.
You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. And then another dear friend of mine, Umberto, he hired me after I graduated. I was looking for part-time work when I was starting the studio, and I was showing apartments for his rental property company. And at a certain point, he said, "Look, I care a lot about you. I'm going to tell you something. I hope this doesn't hurt, but you're fired. You need to go focus on music full time. That's what you need to be doing."
That's a good friend.
And that was a good friend, so I'm grateful for those kind of friends.
Gave you the kick in the pants that you needed.
Yeah, exactly. So, but definitely a lot of people along the way, a lot of friends that have been supportive.
Yeah.
Shout out to my business partners at Worldtown, Femi and Gary. They've been crazy supportive. Been there for me and really been through the trenches for going on 12, 13, 14 years now. And
it really is an evolution, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When you start, it
Absolutely.
feels... And I guess, thinking about, that idea of, oh, have you made it? You never really... There's always a next thing, right?
Always.
That you're shooting for. I obviously was doing some research about you before the show and, learning about some of the things you've done. And I read that you... produced on a Grammy award-winning song. Is there a Grammy hanging out down here somewhere?
So I work closely with another very good friend of mine and mentor, Pablo Batista. He's a incredible percussionist, Afro-Latin, folkloric master. And we had kind of become tight right before the pandemic.
Sure.
But then during the pandemic became pandemic buddies,
everybody had their set of
everybody had their little bubble, and we were the bubble, it was me, my roommates, and Pablo. And so I was in his studio 4 or 5 days a week, and just became his engineer.
That's so
and
cool.
So we were we're like, what do we do with ourselves? Well, we just create, there's nothing else, there's no real demand for work. We had a couple little like virtual gigs here and there, but so I was just in there, became, got a really good flow going with him.
Vibe.
Yeah, got a lot of experience producing percussion, which is like kind of my background musically is drums and percussion.
Very cool.
So I really got to focus in with someone at his level, which was like a crazy opportunity.
Oh my gosh.
And then one day he says, "Hey, I need you to come, tomorrow or whatever it was. I have this project. Just show up." And I was like, "Okay,
like, I'm there."
And then I'm like, "So what are we doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm working with her now, and we need to cut the tracks, and here's what I think we should do." And we did it, and ended up winning, Song of the Year.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So like that, I mean, and going back to kind of what we were talking about, like the idea of like making it, like for a lot of musicians, that's like a huge piece, right? Like you're, aiming for.
For sure.
But it's like, okay, now you've accomplished that. So like, what's the next thing for like, not even achieving, but like, with art and creating, I think we're always looking for like that next little, like spark of inspiration that can kind of take our work into the next evolution.
Yeah, so,
right? So
as I came out of the pandemic, I became very close with one of my closest Philly friends' brothers who had just moved back from Switzerland, actually.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And we connected over music. He had been exposed to this, deeper techie house with world vibes, in Switzerland, and had become very good friends with this whole community there. And so he came to a party that I was playing at, and he said, after my set, he said, "Listen, I want you to do exactly what you did right now, and I'm going to take you to Switzerland. I'm going to get you booked there." And I'm thinking it's like 3-4 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, sure. People say stuff all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
like,
we're going to
Switzerland.
Monday, he says, "Hey, I'm outside. I have the money. Book your ticket. These are the dates."
Oh my gosh.
And he dropped off an envelope, and
you were
a couple weeks later, and I was like, "All right, we're going."
Going to Switzerland.
And so we went to Switzerland, and that was around the time that things were kind of opening back up, and I had realized then that having my own party concept was kind of key for growth as a DJ.
Okay.
In terms of, 2 parts. One, just like sonic branding and like really focusing on like a certain lane.
Yeah.
And kind of like recognition of that lane and just consistency.
Carving your style out.
Carving my style, but then having like, this brand that people would come to where they could like experience that. Because that's the most important part. Yeah, sure. That was like one of the hard lessons of pandemic is like,
like
people.
Like, yeah, sure.
Well, you're not going to get the same experience in your living room as you are with the DJ in the setting that they've curated. You know what I mean?
I feel like people were really hungry for that too.
Oh, for sure.
Out of the pandemic, like we were all just like, get us outside.
It was perfect timing, honestly, because then we put this concept together, and Moose was core in. He was like, my biggest champion. He said, "We're going to Switzerland."
I love it.
And I said, "Look, I want to start this party." And that was definitely influential on like giving confidence that that style that I was really interested in all along was actually something like global.
That people would connect with, and you
would
be able to like develop.
For sure. And it was definitely like, an evolutionary point where we decided, okay, this is going to be kind of the general direction.
Yeah.
So.
And was that like a feeling? Like, did you get that like a feeling on stage where you were like, "Wow, this is working. Like, this is it."
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or was it more like a gradual kind of thing where like you were kind of workshopping it as you went?
Yeah, it was workshopping, but like I've been since my first like full gig where I got hired to, play a 4-hour set, which was in the Gayborhood. At this little like corner spot. And I'm thinking like, what are these people gonna think, And it was definitely like a sink or swim kind of feeling. Like, but it was like my first 4-hour gig. And it went over so well, and it was like some Afro stuff, some Latin stuff, Brazilian. It was like all these different flavors that I loved and really like spoke to me. And it just worked out really well. And so like, it's funny, fast forwarding like 15 years later, it's still kind of the same premise, Definitely like evolved,
For sure.
but very similar, like drum heavy, soulful, fun melodies, big vocals. A lot of the same DJs that I was playing then. Actually, I'm bringing Departed for the first time this weekend to New York.
So cool.
Yeah, it's like our kind of New York debut, and one of the DJs that I was like playing then, I'm actually opening for him now.
Oh my gosh!
And so it's like,
is that like a full circle?
This is such a trip.
Crazy thing? Oh
yeah.
My gosh.
So it's really, it's sort of like feels like confirmation that like I've been
on the right track.
And just
because you never really know, right? You're kind of just like, I'm gonna try this thing and see how it goes, and then it's almost like sometimes I'm like surprised when people connect with something that I'm making or doing, and I'm like, wow, but it always feels so good because it's like, I think it really is about connection. Like, I feel like you talked
100%.
a lot about community, which is really cool, and has kind of really been a common thread, I think, like as we've talked to people on the show, like you need those, like you need your people, or like your tribe that can, champion you, or like teach 100%. You things, and you glean, working with somebody, whether you're in a studio or like, any setting really. It doesn't even have to be creative. I feel like you just learn so much from being in the same room with somebody and working on something together.
It's just the energy reciprocation, when you put so much into it and then you get back, like positive feedback, that's like one of the best feelings.
Really cool. I love hearing how your career has evolved like that over time, and I'm curious if your music has also evolved that way too. So, like, I know that you are inspired by a lot of diverse cultures, and you include those in your work. Was it always that way, or how has that evolved with how you concept and brand yourself?
Yeah, I think, so I grew up in Vermont, which is a very isolated, super small state. It's beautiful. It's super chill. It's very earthy.
They don't have billboards there, which
There's no billboards.
Even if, don't tell my marketing clients, I don't like billboards.
Yeah. Listen. But we're the only state capital without a McDonald's. So it's very like, I've always been kind of conditioned like anti-corporate, small business first. Yeah. Do it, handmade is better kind of thing. But there's always been a sense of like curiosity with world culture. So like my third grade teacher would always talk about how he did time in Niger, working in the Peace Corps, and how, fascinating it was, and the people were so like genuine. There wasn't like, they didn't have much, but they were like the most generous people, and it was just like those kind of messages. And then, a couple years later, the science teacher was talking about Nepal and how beautiful the culture was, and the people were so great. They didn't have much, but you got to go to Nepal when you have a chance. And so I'm all
You're like
along,
banking all of these
these little like things where it's just like, there's a wide world out there. There's a wide world, and I'm realizing now that that's such a common theme in like kind of Vermont culture is like travel. And so I had the opportunity in high school to go with a group to Thailand, and we spent a bunch of time like volunteering and traveling and checking out like, Buddhist temples and learning about spirituality, and spending time in these like tiny villages that were, dirt paths basically. But like the nicest people. For sure. And they, what do you need? You take our bedroom, we'll sleep, on the floor.
So they don't have much, but what they have, they're willing to give.
But so generous and like beautiful. Humble and like just kind. And so I think like that kind of curiosity like sparked my interest, along with my folks like taking us on some trips. My dad's actually an art dealer, so he spent
how cool.
He spent a lot of time, he took us to Australia when he was doing focusing on Australian art, and then East Asia, which has been more recently. We went to China a couple times.
Oh wow.
And so those kind of experiences coming from like a really isolated, like super white state, sparked a lot of interest in there's this whole world that's,
untapped and ready.
Afro beats, and how did that translate to Latin America, and how did that, Afro-Cuban Yoruba music, and it was like, wow, all these like beautiful things are out there. Like... Yeah, totally. And so that's like definitely, reflected, especially in my last couple years at Temple when I started really DJing a lot and connecting with different people through music. And that's like, kind of like, music's obviously like universal language.
For
so
sure.
all of a sudden I'm friends with like, I became very tight with Femi, who's my business partner now from Nigeria.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yo, come over, let's hang out. A friend of us, a mutual friend, introduced us. Then he comes over, he's looking through my records. He says, what do you know about Fela Kuti? And I said, oh my God, he's like one of my favorites, like incredible
So
musician.
cool.
He said, this is my people, and then all of a sudden we're like best friends,
Yeah.
And then we started World Town with Karen Linton from Jamaica, Salam from Eritrea, and Libby, who's was in the earliest stages, who's from Philly as well. But it was like this crazy diverse,
I love that.
combination of cultures. And then we're playing soca and playing house and playing
and the culmination
Bali
of all
funk,
that
and
is like such a unique,
it's crazy
cool flavor, right?
And so then our friends group became this like insane diverse posse, because it's Temple, so it's like it's literally everyone.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
my roommates were from Jordan, Egypt, Pakistan. Then there's Femi, who's
awesome.
like best friends with a guy from Norway, and then there's Karen and the whole Jamaican
You
crew,
brought the
and
whole world to you.
literally, we have this photo that was the first like unofficial World Town
Okay.
hang, and it's Iraq, Congo, Trinidad, Canada.
Is
US.
that where that name came from? It was like an idea that
it was Karen actually came up with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was based off a single from MIA called World Town.
Okay. All
and
right.
and we just went with it. I was like, cool. I can't argue with it,
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, and for people listening, World Town is your ensemble that you're part of, right?
Yeah, so we started as a party where basically the concept was like celebrating cultures through music and art, and we played a lot of different flavors, and had a little club night here and there, and then I had I opened the studio, so I started working with live musicians. Then it's like, why don't you come play a gig with me? And then there's a horn and a keyboard and a singer, and then all of a sudden the bass player I connected with the boom room.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to Gary Dan, and he had this thing called Music Church every Sunday.
That sounds cool.
It was great. It was like a songwriting forum kind of, so they would just open, jam, but then once the concept kind of dried out, it's like, everybody stop, okay, rotate, and then new vocalists, drummers, keys, guitars, whatever. So I was looking for a bass player for a specific track, and his partner, very close friend, Julian Hinson, was there, and so I watched him, and he was killing it. I said, hey, would you be down to come to the studio? I have these, like, I make house music, electronic music, but I need a live bass, for this track. So he came, and then he's like, listen, I want to join World Town Sound System, because I just started this concept of, like, taking World Town and creating another project with it, kind of, like, in parallel, called World Town Sound System. There was the live performance, and he said, I want to join, but I want to bring Gary in, because this project should have live drums. I was like, live drums? I never thought of it like that. Isn't that kind of like rock and roll? He's like, no, check this out.
Not the way he does it.
No, so, because they both had a bit of a jam band background, so there was already this sort of vision of, electronic fusion with that world, so we started playing together, and then all of a sudden we have a sax player, percussion.
Oh my gosh. And do you like rotate people in and out of that, or is it the same group every time?
It's mostly we have a core, but then we'll do like guest vocals.
That's fun.
So we have like a track that's gonna come out later this month called "Good Things Take Time." That's with a vocalist named Soraya Nicole, who's like phenomenal singer from Philly.
Cool.
So it's
cool name too.
Yeah, she's great. She's like has the voice of an angel. It's crazy. So it's a lot of that, where the stuff that I produce that's like more live, almost like disco leaning, will go under World Town Sound System, and we'll add the appropriate elements live, drums, percussion, bass, whatever it calls for.
Whatever it needs.
Sometimes all the above. But then we'll do like the writing in here for the most part. Collaborate with some different musicians.
That's cool. Do you guys write a whole new set every time you perform, or?
No, it's literally the set is like what's that soup that's been like made over the past like hundreds of years in China? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they just keep adding to it, and it just keeps like
okay.
Yeah, so it's.
I think I know what you mean, but I don't know the name of it.
Later,
and we'll flash across the screen.
But we we have. It's all original for the most part. We actually just started doing some covers / renditions, and that's like a new thing after 12 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Just out of actually like a collaboration with that I have with Katerina Sky, who's a pianist, like master composer.
Yeah.
We started doing some remixes, and she's been playing Departed.
I love how many collaborations you're doing.
Yeah, it's like,
I just feel like that's got to be so. Like, do you just walk around with like your brain on fire all the time?
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh my god.
I feel like that's when when you start talking, your thing, your art with somebody, then it's just like you can't help but just.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's nonstop. This shirt. This is one art. This is Jessica Carvajal, who's a Colombian artist, lives in Philly now. Cool. She's been doing the illustrations.
Yeah.
These pants are from Femi, Oloa Femi, who's the World Town partner and art director. So
you're just constantly
surrounding
yourself by creators and different types of artists. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Are you so you compose music, you DJ, you play? Do you play multiple instruments then too? Or?
I play like drums and percussion, but that's like taken kind of like a back burner since I opened the studio, and I'm really focused on engineering, composing, arrangement, and taking more of the conductor role than
Well, you seem really passionate about it, so like
I love it. I love it for sure.
That's really cool. Are you and so I want to go back for a second because we were talking about Switzerland.
Sure.
And how you kind of workshopped your DJ brand there, DJ party there. Are you did you take that other places in Europe too, or did you when did you bring that back to the States, or like how did that all kind of
that was just like a couple gigs there, and it was more, it wasn't necessarily like workshopping it. It was more just like connecting with this crew. Shout out to Demos and Shizzo. They're like awesome DJs there, and J Phase, and the whole Otis gang.
Yeah.
But they basically, Moose got me a couple gigs with them.
Yeah.
And it was more like an affirmation that yes, this is like a thing around the world.
That's so cool.
And especially in Switzerland, in Geneva specifically, it's talk about diverse. It's people from everywhere.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it was really, really cool, sinking into that a bit and seeing their take on, this kind of like global house music.
Yeah,
vibe.
And the energy they bring to it.
For sure.
So I'm sure it's slightly different because you're in a different place, different influences. For sure. So
it was cool meeting them when I did too, because we were kind of both at inflection points. So they've built up this brand called Otis that's like taken off big time there, and it's like an immersive house music experience.
Fun.
And then Departed has taken off here, and so it's like,
is there gonna be like a mashup soon?
There will be eventually. There will be. That's totally like been on the vision board for a while.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool. And what a full circle kind of moment too, like when you had like such a pivotal moment with them there, and to come back together when you guys have flourished for a few years.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm not sure when it's gonna be, but it will definitely.
We're putting it out there.
We're definitely putting it out there. It's it's gonna be great.
That's so cool. I like to ask this question. So you've been, I'm gathering that you've been interested in and inspired by music for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think has it always been music, or like where do you think like your first kind of like spark of like, man, like I love making stuff came from, like, and maybe it wasn't, sometimes it's not the thing we end up in.
Yeah, it was, I was like, have always been like creative and kind of weird, you know. So I was like drawing like treasure maps when I was like 6-7 years old, you know, just here's where you gotta go and this is what, you know, just like making this whole thing up. But then I got, you know, then when I learned how to use like the CD player, I was like going through my parents' collection and like, oh wow, this is cool, but why is this so much different than this one? And then I started when I was like 12 or 13, like I was the 7th grade DJ.
Okay.
So I learned about like Napster, and I was like a little hacker, you know, downloading the MP3s.
You were the guy.
I was the guy. That's how I got the gig. I was like, listen, I know how to burn CDs.
Yeah. You're like,
and I know how to get any song. And they were like, are you serious? I was like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, let me in.
Yeah, let me in. And I got the job. So
oh my gosh.
Like,
how cool.
But then it was like from there, kind of like mapping out different genres and styles of music, and I like made this whole like tree about like different like connecting different genres and just
I
like
love that so
thinking
much.
about that, you know.
Some people have family trees, you have music trees.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like you know, from there, and then like digging into like electronic music, like I got a bit into it in Philly, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. But in Philly it was more like electro and like indie kind of vibes. But then I actually during my Temple days, got a scholarship to go down to Brazil for a semester.
Oh, cool.
And so I went there, and then that's where I learned about, like, house and tech house and, like, the bigger room.
Brought that back.
Yeah, like, global, like, this, a bit more serious, you know, but, like, whoa, this is what the world's, like...
This is where it's headed.
This is, like, the bigger picture, okay. You know, because Philly's, like, definitely a more, like, R&B and, like, hip-hop, you know, roots. And I think like the electronic thing has been slow to catch on like over the years, because while Chicago and Detroit were producing like house and electronic music, Philly had all the musicians. So everybody here was like, why would we use a drum machine? We have like the sickest drummers, you know, why would we use like a sampler? We have like these amazing musicians. And so
it took a while for people to catch on to the art of being a DJ and how that all comes together.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But I think like the pandemic forced a lot of people to, you know, like obviously like disconnect from humanity, but also like connect with the rest of the world through like YouTube. And
for sure.
Then it's like, okay, I've heard every Rihanna track. What else is there? And then it's like, oh, Boiler Room. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh, this is kind of weird, but I kind of like it. But then you see the next set, and it's like, oh wow, this is like a bit different than the previous one, but the flavor is like, whoa, I get down with this,
like,
you know. And then there's so many like nuanced differential factors, you know, of flavor and.
Do you think there's been, because it sounds like you've done quite a bit of traveling with that fair. So, and I also love travel, so I can totally identify with that. And I feel like that exposure, like you were saying, that's changed my outlook on everything. Like, it's changed the way that I make. It's changed the way that, you know, you connect with people, that you see the world, that you're able to share with people. So, and seeing like there's so much commonality no matter where you go and who you're talking to. I wish that, I always say this, like, I wish that was a gift I could just give to everyone. Like, if everyone could just, you know what I mean? Like, world peace. Like, you know, I don't know. But
listen, if everybody had a passport and went to like
just one, it would only take one time, right?
Yeah, just a couple different places. I think we'd have a lot less problems in the world. To be honest,
I think
you know
that too.
I mean?
But so I was gonna, what that rambling was leading to.
Yeah,
for me, it's not just my love letter to travel, but I was wondering if there's been one place that you've went to that has really, you think really impacted you as on a personal level, or like on what you do in your work, or both?
I mean, everywhere that I go impacts me, you know. Like Brazil, they like are really good partiers. They're very soulful, like great energy, you know. West Africa, I had a chance to go to Senegal. That was like
super cool.
That was epic for, you know, just like seeing a whole nother side of like musical soul.
Yeah.
I spent some time in Morocco working with a group that was like incredible, and that's you know, with this it's called Ganawa. It's a like kind of a spiritual like trance music.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I worked with this group called this master musician Mokhtar Ghania, and Ganawa Soul is his band, and that was really interesting.
That's...
They changed my perspective on like musical diversity.
Yeah.
Because Gnawa music, they actually describe it as like, I think it's like 7 or 8 different colors.
Okay.
So I started thinking about music like totally different, like, so it's like a spectrum, like a full circle, you know?
Almost like you would mix paint, but it's color, or it's sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so like thinking about, you know, like especially like weaving together like a DJ set.
Sure.
Is like, okay, what is this color? You know, where do I want this to go?
Wow.
How do I want people to feel?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be thinking about that next time.
It's crazy. It's really, yeah, it's definitely a different perspective.
Wow.
But
do you apply that when you're thinking about your set? Like, is that a tool
for sure.
in your toolbox?
For sure. Because I try to, like every track, I try to, unless I'm doing like an intentional jump because I see like the need to change it.
Yeah.
To change the vibe. Every track has like some common thread. So it's like, if it's, you know, it might be like the remix that I did for the Swiss artist that worked with the Senegalese vocalist.
Okay.
Then I'll go from there to a remix that a South African artist did for me. Like, and then from there go to like the Afro-Cuban track that my friend in Havana created.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so it's like always like these, like I use a lot of like literally mapping it out, you know, in my mind.
Yeah.
It's either that approach or like a lyric or a rhythm or you know, just like a general vibe, you know what I mean? So
following that flow where it takes you.
Exactly. So
how do you catalog all of these like tracks in your head?
they're just floating in there somewhere. Yeah,
they're just in existence.
Yeah, it's the soup, you know. It's just the soup that just keeps adding, and then you know sometimes like a track will fall out of the cauldron, but then it will come back a year or two later, and I'll say, oh wow, I haven't played this one in a while, and
yeah, like this feels right.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. So I'm also curious, and I feel like people listening might be curious if they're like interested in music and composing. What's like some great advice maybe that you could give to mentor somebody that's coming up, like that's really helped you to either like, I don't know, maximize on what you're doing creatively or like monetarily or like, you know, how you've crafted your career?
Well, the best advice, like if you're going the DJ route, is you know, that a good friend of mine, Mike Fitchman, aka Apt1, Michael the Lion, I was having like you know, a bit of a nervous moment before like a big gig early on, and I was having a drink with him, and just, you know, he's always been super supportive, and so we were kind of connecting and hanging out, and I said, you know, how should I approach this? And he said, listen, if you play tracks that you genuinely love, people are going to feel that. And so I was like, whoa, you know, and I was kind of doing that automatically without even realizing it. But if, like, as DJs, when you play stuff that you genuinely love and you, like, get into it and you express that, like, feeling, the crowd, it's so clear that that's, like, the passion is... It's, like,
transferable.
It's transferable, for sure. So... You know, for young DJs, it's like finding stuff that you really love, and then I always suggest to like starting DJs to, you know, make playlists of like different vibes.
Yeah.
That could be anything. It could be like, you know, a genre, or it could be, you know, a word like grimy or bouncy or deep, or, you know, something like that, or another great approach is making like mini sets that are like 3 to 4 tracks.
Okay.
Especially like new DJs, but I also do this now where I'll find, you know, 2, 3, 4 tracks and make like these mini sets.
Yeah.
And use them as like puzzle pieces as I go.
Cool.
And it kind of, what it does is it helps like continuity. So like if you have these like 4 tracks that like lock in together and harmonically like build tension and energy, you'll be like confident when you're mixing, because this goes to this, and then this goes to this, and it kind of gives you a breather from like, okay, what am I going to play next? But it also like is like a sure bet that they sound good together.
Yeah.
And if you like rehearse that beforehand, and then it gives you a second to say, okay, cool, by the time this like little set is over, I'm going to take it here, I'm going to continue, or bring it back or whatever. So between
gives
those,
you an opportunity to like give yourself a second to think if you need to, or
Yep.
take a beat.
Yep.
Take a beat.
Yeah, take a beat.
Do you still get nervous when you perform, or?
It's honestly like the smaller gigs make me nervous now. Like when it's like, a room of, I find the hardest time to play is when it's like the beginning of the night, when people are like least warmed up, and you have
to do a little more work to get them.
Yeah, you got to do a little more work, break the ice a bit.
Is there a certain level of like having to read the room? Like, have you ever put a set together when you get there, you're like, I got to shift. This is
completely, all the time. Yeah.
Okay, that's like part of the deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like with the with like Travel by Map and Departed, we've done enough of them at this point where it's like, I know what I'm going for, and I'll put together like blocks of tracks that I'm pretty confident will work out, and they usually make the cut. But sometimes it's like, oh, actually, let's like take it over here. I think they want something
else, or like if they're really vibing on something, then you could
for sure
push on that button,
pull an audible, for sure.
That's so cool.
I always like put together like specific blocks of tracks and like this style, this genre, this feeling, whatever. But then I'll also have like a crate that's just like, these will probably work. Not sure when, but
you're just gonna have them ready.
Yeah, like good bunch of selections. So
there's a certain level of trust that like in yourself that you have to develop, right? Like to do that, because I feel like, and especially, I mean, I guess you could say that with any like creative endeavor, but like especially on stage, because you're literally out there in front of people watching you do your things. So having to just trust that your hand and your brain are going to know what to do has got to be that's got to be fulfilling too, to get. Do you feel like you've reached that point where you're confident, like if it's not working, you'll make it work? Like, it's
for sure, and you just kind of have to push through sometimes, and there's you never know, because everybody's going through all sorts of different stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, the another piece of advice that I got early on was like, your job is literally to make people have fun.
Oh, that's a cool.
And it was like, oh, okay, and it was like, you're, do this for you, but you really need to do this for them. Yeah. So it's like making sure that it's like folks are connecting with it, and that it's, and that was from like an open format DJ who's like phenomenal at what he does. But I think it like rings true for all entertainers. It's like how because you've also you're obviously like very accomplished in musically. You've created a lot of great collaborations in community, and it sounds like you also understand branding pretty well, because you've figured out, kind of dialed in what you do. How hard was that for you to figure out? Like, do you feel like it fell in naturally, or like did you have to sit down with a notebook and be like, all right, these are like things that I think work? Or it's just like an evolution. I did I went to Temple to go to business school, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna make a living with music. So I kind of took the guy. Yeah, I know. Well,
that probably came in handy though, right? I mean,
100%. It's just like all the basics with how to run a business and everything. So
for sure.
Because that's at the end of the day is like, we got to make sure that everybody gets paid, and that tickets get sold so that we can keep the studio open. And
it's the dark side of the art.
The dark side. It's so not fun, but it makes the rewards so much sweeter. So
the wheels turn.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like to end the show, even though I love talking to you, and I would love to hear more about your background and how the travel weaves in. It just, the more I'm learning, the more I'm seeing all that weave together. So that's so cool. But I like to end the show with kind of like an artist tag. So if you can give us one, could be an artist, a creator, a maker, someone that's inspiring you here in Philly, and maybe one outside of Philly somewhere that we could maybe contact and go bug them for an interview.
In Philly, there's this producer DJ who's phenomenal, and he's like one of the few people that has like seriously made it worldwide. His name's Josh Wink.
Cool.
I had the chance to open for him a couple months ago.
What was that like?
It was really cool, you know. I was a little nervous about that one, just because it's like,
It
you know.
felt
But I had to
good.
remind myself, play stuff that you love, and people will, you know, resonate with it. But he's really such a sweetheart, so genuine, and has always like stayed super true to his craft.
I love that.
You know, he's had like, from what I'm told, has had like some crazy, you know, commercial opportunities that he declined because he's like, I'm not aligned with that. I'm an artist. I am underground. I'm techno. You know, this is what I do. I'm not selling out, and so that's pretty
so respectable.
Yeah, so respectable, and he's still like relevant and, you know, crushing like gigs, and you know,
so cool.
And super sweetheart. He's like, you know, he doesn't drink. He's sober.
He's there to do his
And
art.
he's there, and he's just like like one of those guys that you like shake his hand and you like feel like just epic energy, you know,
yeah,
like,
and you're like
for sure, yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so
how did the gig go?
It was really good.
Yeah. I love that you're still using that mantra for yourself too, the one that you gave to them.
For sure,
like,
for sure.
Play what you love, and they'll love it too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Very cool. How about someone outside of Philly?
Outside of Philly, that I like inspires me.
Yeah, someone that inspires you. It doesn't even have to be a musician. It could be anybody. Like, we're interested in talking to everybody. So.
Let's see. Well, I've been reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, recently.
Okay, yeah.
Good luck tracking him down, but
Rick Rubin.
Yeah. But like incredible producer, just like really cool philosophy on creativity.
Yeah.
And you know, just so talented and diverse.
That's a great
you
book.
know. Yeah. Super cool.
It's really cool. Awesome.
So.
Well, thank you again for the interview and your time and letting us into your space. And,
yeah, thanks for being here.
If you were following along and counted up my questions, head over to TikTok at the Artist10 Podcast and comment how many you think I got. I will not guarantee there'll be 10, but we will follow this week with a total. And if you're an artist, designer, or creative, please leave us a question in the same comment and we'll pick a few to read and answer on the show next time. And that's a wrap. No worries though, we will return with more inspo, know-how, and creative collabs for your hearing pleasure. In the meantime, tag along with us on Instagram at Heart House Creative or TikTok at the Artist10 Podcast. And do us and you a favor by clicking that follow button to subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you feed your brain from. Till next time, I'm Jen Hart. Keep creating, artists. This episode of the Artist10 Podcast was recorded from DJ Ben Arsenal's studio in Philadelphia, PA. The show was produced by Heart House Creative. Photo and video content was captured by Philly photographer Kathy Berry of Beaumont Originals at Beaumont Originals on Instagram. Learn more about this episode's feature artist, DJ Ben Arsenal, by following at Ben Arsenal on Instagram or YouTube, on Facebook at Ben Arsenal Tunes, or by visiting benarsenal.com.